So, so raise your hand if you just recorded 14 minutes of this video and forgot to hit record on the audio. Me, I did. Anyways, welcome back to my channel. Honestly, that first one was probably not very good, so let's give it a run again. My name is Darren Rigo. I am a freelance photographer, videographer that lives out in northern BC, Canada. And today I wanted to make a video. Oh, the lighting just changed. I'm filming this in a solarium, which is hilarious, by the way. If ever you want to, oh, getting bright again. If ever you thought filming a video in a room full of windows is a good idea because it's natural lighting, it's not. I like to make videos about the equipment I'm using, about the work I'm doing, and today I'm hoping to make a video to talk about this guy right here. This is the, if you guys can see that. This is the Nikon Z50. Now, the Nikon Z50 is a really interesting camera. And before I get into the specifics, I do just want to say up front Nikon Canada was totally awesome. And they actually sent me this camera to use. No money changed hands. There's no creative control over the review or the content that I make with it. But just some disclosure up front. And also, side shout out thank you so much to Nikon Canada for sending this. I never thought in a million years those would be words that I would get to say. So that's amazing. I'm incredibly grateful. I try not to be like overly technical. I think, the kinds of reviews that I gravitate towards are not ones where they read through the product spec sheet and they go over like the nitty gritty stuff. I'm going to try to highlight the things that I think are useful, the things that, I would be looking for if I were buying this camera, talking about the hits, some of the misses, things that I hope that they can improve upon in the future, and then broadly like where this piece of gear fits in my camera bag as a freelancer and how I kind of use it. And so let's hop into that. The place that I would start the review on a camera like this is to talk about where it fits in the broader context of Nikon's lineup. The Nikon Z50 is a mirrorless camera that's a part of their Z line, but it's a crop sensor camera. It does have all those drawbacks of being a crop sensor camera. The low light performance is going to be a little bit worse. The autofocus does suffer because of that smaller frame size. You got to times your focal length by 30% or whatever to know what your actual focal length for that lens is. That's all still true about it. But I don't think people should get as hung up on that as you typically would in the crop sensor camera game. And a big reason why is this is still a 20.9 megapixel sensor underneath it. It is a huge sensor. It is equipped with that new Z lens mount. So all of Nikon's new glass that comes with that Z series lineup is usable on that camera. And I think that's one of the hidden sort of perks of this camera that you don't think about is you tend to sort of think about it in the context of this 16 to 50 millimeter that it comes with. But if you later down the road want to put something like the 35 mil 1.8 or even the 50 millimeter 1.2, some of that actually higher end prime glass, you will be amazed by the quality that comes out of this thing. On top of what I think is already quite good with its kit lens. So a couple other things that I just want to mention, spec wise about this camera that are just worth mentioning that I think are unique or interesting about it. Unlike the other mirrorless cameras in Nikon Z series lineup, this one does have the little pop-up flash. Um, Whether that's useful for you or not, I don't know. I probably will never use it because I do carry around speed lights with me just from my days doing wedding photography. I tend to not think that those little pop-up flashes are super good. But hey, man, if you're just starting out and you need to pop a little bit of light in an indoor scenario, these guys are great. For the first like 10 years that I shot photography, I used my pop-up flash all the time. So awesome that they included it. I think it's a great addition and something to be aware of. One other thing that I'm going to kind of focus in on here is the LCD screen on the back. This is a brilliant LCD screen. The quality of it is comparable to the Nikon Z6 II that I use for my professional work. And I think this LCD screen, you would have a hard time noticing the difference spec wise, even if you were to read on paper that they were different. It is the flip LCD screen, but one interesting fact about this one is it actually flips all the way down. So I don't know if you guys can see that too well, but unlike the Z6 and Z7 where it stops halfway down, like this one you can actually do forward facing kind of like kind of vlog style content. I think that's an awesome addition. Again, for who they're marketing this camera to, like creators who just kind of need a run and gun setup, that flip down LCD screen is great and really welcomed. It's something that I would welcome on the Z6 II or the cameras that I use more regularly. That being said, there is something that I should point out, something that, I would think about if I were buying this camera for that reason. The flip down LCD screen is rad, but because it is flip down, not flip out, it actually blocks the tripod hole on the bottom. I don't know if you guys can see that too well, but if you did want to sort of do what I'm doing now, like a talking head piece, you can't because this would be sitting on a tripod. You couldn't actually see the forward facing screen at that time. As well as I know a lot of creators who do the vlog style content like to use a gorilla pod and sort of have it out like that sort of. And again, because it's blocking that tripod mount, you couldn't use a gorilla pod and the flip down screen at the same time. It's crummy. I like if I could send a message directly to Nikon, I would say it's time to get on board with the flip out screen, specifically the Sony one, the flip out and then the swivel. I would welcome that so much more than this flip down thing. Again, if I am compromising, this is still better than that, and it's better than nothing, but something to think about. It also does do the flip up. So if you were kind of shooting at chest height, like, for real estate stuff, or sometimes at weddings, if I'm trying to be a little bit more discreet, you can kind of hold it down at your stomach and point the screen up at yourself still. So nice screen. I like it. The EVF inside is a 0.39 inch little EVF. Obviously, it's not an optical viewfinder because it's mirrorless. Great quality. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but if you're having questions about either the screen or the EVF, they are exceptional. No question. The last, I guess, sort of technical spec piece on this that, again, you could read on a product page if you wanted, is just that it is one SD card slot on the bottom here. It pops out. Nice and hidden in the bottom. Um, I don't think this camera is really going to be marketed towards wedding photographers. Like, I doubt there's a lot of people who are buying this thing that want two card slots or a redundancy. Something to just note though. Yeah, I typically, for even my commercial work, wedding work, I do like to shoot a redundant card to have two card slots operating at the same time. It's why I was so pumped when the Z6 II came out and it did have that second card slot, but this guy doesn't have it. So if that means something to you, now you know. To move away from the spec stuff for a moment and to just talk about this as a package. So this is the Z50 with the 16 to 50 kit lens on it. This whole package with the battery and card ready to shoot weighs 570 grams. Like, that is bananas. That is so crazy to me. And maybe if you're just getting into the mirrorless game, or you've shot some Sony cameras or the lighter stuff before, that doesn't sound as impressive to you. A year ago, I was shooting a Nikon D750 with the Sigma 35 millimeter 1.4 art, and that whole kit weighs like 2,000 grams. It is so heavy and it is so hard on your wrist on a wedding day. I first got this camera, the Z6. I remember I put the 35 millimeter prime on it, and I think it weighed like 1,400 grams or something like that. And I remember being like, "This is amazing. This is the lightest camera. I'm never going back." To now know that this camera is like a third that weight and a completely passable, satisfactory, quality camera that I can bring with me for traveling or for hiking, that blows my mind. That is probably like the greatest perk of this camera, is just how light and how accessible this little package is relative to its heavier camera parts, and just how discreet this thing is. I'm gonna show you guys something actually. One sec. I'm back. Okay, this is my camera bag. This is the Low Pro. I don't even know. I got this thing like 5 years ago. It's amazing. I love it. This is an unplanned part of the review, but this is the way I have my little slider set up, or my compartment set up. I don't know which one. Let's try this one. Boom. You see that? It's amazing. So when you're on a shoot, or if you're just like pulled over on the road and you see like a beautiful scene, or something like a nice sunset, you just reach in your bag. This thing's ready to go. You don't have to like stop, take off a body cap, put on a lens cap, and assemble this thing. You just grab this and it's ready to go. Oops. This thing fits in my jacket pocket. It fits in my hoodie pocket. You can just tuck it away in your glove compartment. It fits so discreetly in so many spots. And I just think that, again, this just like teeny little footprint for the power and quality of it is amazing. So keep that in mind. So let's talk about the image quality, because I think none of this matters if the camera sucks, right? Like, they could make the smallest, most best camera in the world. that's light and easy to use, but none of that matters if the camera sucks. I'll just kind of come out and say it. This thing does not suck. This camera is incredible for being a crop sensor for the price point you get it at, paired with this wee little lens. I am blown away by the quality of it. I have now brought this thing along on, I think, 5 or 6 different commercial jobs. The first few, I was really hesitant to even think about using this thing as a main camera. I would shoot first with that one to make sure I got the shot, and then I would pull this thing out and do some backups, and then kind of compare them. And I was like, ooh, like, are these still going to be, client ready images? I couldn't tell the difference in most of the scenarios. I cannot stress enough how comparable this little package is to sort of that higher end Nikon setup in the Z6 and Z7. Now I won't go too far with that. Don't run away with that sentiment. This is not a replacement by any means. So don't hear that and think like, oh, why would I buy the $3,000 camera when I could buy the $1,200 camera? You can't. They're not the same. But this thing is more than passable. I know when I'm on a job, knowing that I have now a third redundancy on top of my two Z6 that if something went catastrophically wrong with both of those, I could get most of my jobs done with this thing, no questions asked. That's photography, videography wise. How does this thing fit in? Let me show you guys something. I'm just gonna show you guys something kind of crazy real quick here. Boom. This is the Nikon Z50. This is 1080p. This is 24 frames a second. This is what it looks like with its the 16 to 50 millimeter lens on it. So I guess we're sitting at about 20 millimeter equivalent. Pretty amazing quality. Now let me show you something else. I'm going to now put the 35 millimeter lens that we started on this camera. Let's do that. I think it's a little bright. That looking. The camera's really far away now. So now this is the Nikon Z50, but with my 35 millimeter 1.8, shooting at 1.8. So a better comparison than that little pancake lens. This is pretty impressive, right? When you compare the quality of what you're looking at right now to what we started on at the beginning, even with that little pancake lens in the middle that we just shot, the quality is incredible in my opinion. I I don't think for your average sort of like client video, for your average sort of corporate work, I don't think most people could tell the difference between what we're looking at right now and where we started. Now, I'm not saying that I'm running out to go replace my Z6s with this camera, or if you're looking to get into like professional corporate work, this will do. The Z6 is still going to perform better in all of the different crazy scenarios that you can find yourself in as a freelancer. But this camera is comparable. And I just think it's worth mentioning that because at this price point, knowing that your average client and for your average scenario, this camera is more than good enough, that means something. That's pretty exceptional. And so while we're shooting on this camera and talking about video on the Z50, there's just a few things that I think are worth mentioning. This camera does shoot 120 frames per second. And so if you're someone who looks to do that sort of creamy Peter McKinnon style B-roll, this camera does it very well. I'll put some of the clips that I've shot just in some of the corporate work I've been doing, where I didn't feel like getting out my other camera setup, or I just needed to catch a quick little B-roll clip on this thing. This thing has saved my butt. This 120 frames on this camera is amazing. Oh yeah, this has probably been a pretty rambly review. I'm a bit all over the place. I have no idea if I can even chapter this thing because I feel like I talk about 30 different things all at once. But I hope there was something in there for you. My conclusion on this camera for myself as a freelancer, this camera is a permanent addition to my bag. The Z50 with its little pancake lens, because it sits in there ready to go, because I can grab that, use it for behind the scenes footage. If I just want to snap a quick photo of the set that I'm doing, or the client maybe wants like a quick little shot for their behind the scenes while we're shooting, for a travel camera, for even just having on me as like a out and about camera. Sometimes I'll just bring this thing out when we're running errands if I think there's going to be a nice sunset downtown or something. All of those reasons mean that it will have a permanent place in my bag, and I'm super grateful to have it now. Who do I think this camera's for? I think Nikon nailed who they're aiming it at. I think if you're looking to get into mirrorless photography, this is your first mirrorless camera. You can't go wrong with it. With the little pancake lens, this camera, you're ready to create some amazing content, video and photo. Once you've done that for a little while and you want to upgrade, throwing some glass like this on it to even get a bit more out of your camera, I think you'll go a long ways. And then down the road, you upgrade to the Z6 or the Z7 to really kind of go to that full frame extent. Who do I think this camera isn't for? I don't think this camera is for someone who is like already sort of in the photo space and just wanting to upgrade. I don't think this camera really upgrades from much. It's like a really good level off point if you're, or it's a really good jumping off point if you're just getting into it. And it's a really good sort of like accessory to someone who's already in it. But I just don't imagine someone who's like, in an ecosystem and wanting to upgrade to it. And yeah, I guess like in conclusion, this is a great package from Nikon. Has a lot of hits, it has a couple misses. I hope there are some things that honestly the Z6 and Z7 could learn from the Z50 that I hope the technology they kind of adopt over to it. And then there's just some things I think that Nikon can improve on it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I hope it was helpful. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you guys want to like and subscribe to the video, that means a lot to me. It tells me that I'm doing the right stuff. And hopefully we'll be back with another one. Thanks, guys.